At some point in your game development learning journey, you're going to reach a point where you're feeling stuck and like you're never going to get any better. And you're going to see a lot of conflicting advice about what you should do when you reach this point. You might hear conflicting advice, or you might even just see some really divisive thumbnails. I know that many seasoned developers have a really hard stance of stop watching other people build stuff and build stuff yourself. That's how you're gonna learn. And all of this might have led you to this video asking yourself, should you stop watching tutorials? By the way, this is a very good question to ask because the wrong actions can literally waste years of your time and carve away at your confidence until there's nothing left. So I just wanna offer my own perspective on this because as someone who went through 2 years of tutorial hell, I have some experience with what not to do in this situation and how to eventually get out of it if you are in fact in tutorial hell. So if you don't know what tutorial hell is, this is basically where you are caught in a never-ending loop of watching tutorial after tutorial, and you're just trying to bolster your confidence and gain enough knowledge to actually start working on your own game. And as far as I can see, tutorial hell exists for 2 simple reasons. One is because there is just an abundance of conflicting advice. For example, you'll finally learn how to use inheritance, only to then hear that you should favor composition over inheritance. That is one of hundreds of examples just like that are really frustrating for beginners to find out. The second reason is that learning alone is never going to make you feel confident or competent in anything. If you were a law student, you could read every single law book in existence, but that does not mean that the first time you argue in court, you're going to have any idea what the heck you're doing. It's the same for anything. Confidence does not come until you gain enough of your own experience. So, does this mean that you should just drop tutorials and never watch them again? No. I would not focus so heavily on tutorials on our channel if I didn't think that they were extremely helpful. So we know what tutorial hell is and we know why it exists. But in order to prevent it or to get out of it if you're in it, we need to know why some people get into tutorial hell and why some people don't. Forget about game dev just for 1 second because there's an easier example to work with. Let's talk about post-secondary education, and for the sake of simplicity, we'll say university. But let's also say for this example, you really care about your education because you are focused on your career. So you're in university, you're determined, you're focused, and you invest a lot of time and energy into studying and doing all of your assignments to the best of your abilities. You do this for years. But now you've graduated, you're supposed to be ready for the workplace. Yet in many careers, the case is going to be that you found a job that makes you feel like you learned nothing from your education. And the majority of your learning is going to happen right there on the job. I'm not bashing post-secondary education, by the way. This is just how it is some of the time. And game dev can be exactly the same as this. You care, you're determined, you're focused, you spend a lot of time and energy into studying, aka tutorials. And then when you move on and try to make your own projects, it feels like you have learned nothing. Here's the difference though. If you are here watching this video, it is very, very likely that you are self-taught, which means you can adjust your curriculum in any way that you want. So is cutting out all textbooks from our education, or if we drop the metaphor, is cutting out all tutorials the answer to staying out of tutorial hell for game dev? No, it isn't. If you come into this industry knowing absolutely nothing, a lot of the time this is going to be your base knowledge that you build off of. And tutorials are not just for beginners. For example, the tutorial channel Get Amend is a great tutorial resource for intermediate or advanced developers. There are tutorials out there for every single skill level. Tutorials can be an invaluable resource. It's also a place where you're just going to pick up a lot of tips and tricks and learn about features you didn't know existed. So if you're just watching tutorials to pluck out the code you need and then you leave, you're probably missing out. What we need to do is adjust our own curriculums to fill in any gaps that we are missing. And for a lot of people that are learning game development, that is going to be self-directed projects. Think of these like co-op programs. And the size of the project that you're working on should depend on your experience level as well as what your own individual goals are. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, then thank you if you leave a like or a comment. I missed out on a really fantastic opportunity when I was first learning Unity. My daughter was about 2 years old and she was obsessed with this like bubble popping game for the iPhone. It was really, really simple. Like bubbles went up and you touched it and they just popped in a really satisfying way. She used to laugh and thought it was hilarious. Then I looked at that and I was like, I can make that. So I opened up Unity and I got a nice bubble sprite and I slapped it in there. And then I had to figure out how to make the bubbles constantly move upwards because I was trying to copy this other game. That's literally all I had to do. Very, very simple thing. And I told myself I made a really hard rule that I was not going to Google how to do this. I should know by now. I'm going to do it myself. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I tried so many different times and I was never able to figure it out. And I never let myself go on Google. I was very strict about that. So stupidly, I gave up instead and just dropped the project. And in the process of doing that, I lost a lot of confidence. That was a big missed opportunity for me because had I persevered, it would have actually bolstered my confidence and then I would have been more comfortable trying more things on my own, which would have made me learn faster, even if I had to Google it. Instead, because I quit the project, I actually went down a couple of levels. I was discouraged and I told myself I was definitely not ready to be trying things on my own, and I went right back into tutorial hell. I didn't try anything on my own for a while after that. Hard rules are almost never a good thing. If I had Googled it, I would have been fine and I would have figured it out. So whether you are in tutorial hell or you just want to avoid it entirely, it's not A or B. It's not dropping tutorials and only doing things by yourself. It is a healthy mixture of both. University, in a lot of aspects, actually makes things very easy for you because they have a whole pathway for you to follow from A to Z, from beginning to career, with thousands of people that have gone before you. Learning game dev alone is very different from this, which means if you were learning through watching tutorials and working on your own projects, you have to be extremely proactive with your own education. Having goals or milestones in mind so that you can actually track your progress would be a really good idea. So I want to be clear, a constant stream of tutorials and lessons is a great thing, so long as you are balancing that with a healthy dose of using that knowledge in projects somewhere, somehow. Whether you're working on a larger project that you're just slowly putting together piece by piece, or you're working on a bunch of small projects, or you're doing a whole bunch of game jams, or some combination of the above, it doesn't matter. The thing is, the actions that you need to take will depend on whether or not you understand something. And you'll know when you understand things. The actions you take afterwards really matter. I remember an early project I made where I was building an inventory system, and I didn't know how to do that myself, so I was following a tutorial step by step. I finished it once, I didn't get it, I followed it a second time and a third time, and I still did not understand a lick of anything that I had followed in that tutorial. Not once during the process did I feel like I even remotely understood how it was all pieced together and how it all worked. I didn't get it. Back then, when my goal was really just learning how to make games, that was a complete waste of my time. The tutorial was obviously a little too advanced for me to be able to understand the concepts that they were laying out in front of me. So if it's too advanced, you might want to pull back a little bit because you do need to understand a little bit about what's being said in order for you to progress. The really important thing for you to be doing is to constantly be measuring how you are doing and make sure that you are always stretching your education. You're stretching your mind, you're stretching what you know beyond what you're comfortable with. It has to be at just the right level. Everything is about finding that sweet spot. Following tutorials and doing nothing else is really easy because it's comfortable. If you are feeling comfortable while you are learning game development, then something isn't right. But if you're feeling too frustrated or too overwhelmed, you might be on the wrong track as well, because that's not great. It might be that you're following something that's a little too advanced for you if that's how you're feeling. That's why we said you're in charge of your own curriculum, because you have to be gauging how you are doing and adjust accordingly constantly. There's no linear path you're going to be following. You're probably going to be jumping all over the place if you're doing it right. Maybe last week you got your character moving on the screen all by yourself. That's great. So maybe this week you decide, how can I make it work on keyboard and gamepad? Or you want to implement a jump this week, and maybe next week you'll figure out how to make that jump and make it a variable height jump depending on how long you hold down the button. Those are two very different jumps. Building off of little micro victories is a really great way to bolster your confidence. And when you're learning, confidence is everything. Or if you fail, meaning you couldn't accomplish what you were trying to accomplish by yourself, and that's going to happen a lot of the time, then you might have found a gap in your knowledge that's too wide for you to cross on your own. Go to Google. Go to YouTube, find a tutorial, see how people handle it who have a little more experience than you do. But the most important part is absorb it and learn from it. Don't just blindly follow it. Those are two very different things. Your earliest projects when you're first learning are going to be built on the backs of other people's code. That's normal. The biggest part of learning game development is learning how to learn. Once you know how to effectively learn, you're going to be unstoppable. And avoiding comfort like the plague, because whenever you're feeling comfortable, it's because you're not stretching yourself enough. You do that, you're going to avoid tutorial hell completely. That's all I got, guys. I hope you enjoyed.